Welcome to another episode of Overrated and Underrated. Rather than a fitness edition, today we are doing more of a nutrition edition. So the topic today is going to be the idea of not eating after a certain time. I'm sure plenty of people have heard this one before, this idea of don't eat after 6 p.m. or in particular, don't eat carbs after 6 p.m. Yet, despite how the majority of us have either been given or heard this little piece of advice, we don't really know where it came from. But if we can be honest, nowadays people aren't even likely to be home, nonetheless sitting at their table ready to eat by 6 p.m. Now, people believe this is the way to go because it is known that eating later in the evening and late night snacking is linked to weight gain. But timing has nothing to do with it. It has to do with what people are going for when they head to their kitchens later in the evening for that late night meal or that late night snacking. It's not that the body suddenly starts storing food as fat once a certain time hits. It's the mindless snacking that can cause problems for people. But if your body is hungry or craving food, you should never be afraid to eat, regardless of what time it is. In fact, if you tell yourself that you can't eat or you shouldn't eat because it's a certain time in the night, you're more likely to break down even later on in the night and engage in that mindless snacking that's going to make you feel unwell the following day or cause those problems you were trying to avoid when it comes to, say, your weight. But regardless, you should never push through or push away hunger pangs, no matter what time it is. Because timing doesn't really have anything to do with weight loss. And if anything, it'll create or heighten an unhealthy relationship with food as a whole for you. Your body doesn't know what time it is, but your body does know when it's being deprived or starved of what it needs to survive. Calories are calories, regardless of what time you're eating them. So it doesn't matter if you're eating them later in the evening or spread out throughout the day. What matters is what type of food you're consuming, how much of it you're eating, and then your physical levels to kind of balance it out. And if we solely relied on only eating at a certain time, how would that work for people who worked, say, the overnight shift, or in general had different sleep cycles? Do all of those people fall into a category of being always overweight or unhealthy? No, of course not. And I'm sure they don't have a normal eating cycle because they don't have a normal sleep cycle. So why should it be different for anybody else? Cutting out food at a specific time based on what we hear is good for us is ridiculous and overrated. Which brings us to what is important and underrated here. Fueling your body appropriately throughout the day so it never gets to a state where it's in deprivation or starvation mode and feels like it needs to break down later on in the evening and go for those more calorically dense, high sugar, and processed foods. Incorporating multiple meals, snacks, treats, and allowing for a general balance of what your body wants and what it needs throughout the day is going to ensure that you are feeling satiated and satisfied with the amount of food and fuel you are putting into your body. And it will avoid you having that breakdown moment later on in the evening and going for whatever is in sight. Because that breakdown moment can cause a lot of problems for you. It can definitely influence your weight if it's something that you do consistently, but it can also affect your hormones, your digestion, your blood sugar levels, and in general leave you in a state of feeling mentally unwell. So it's not about constantly restricting and controlling your food based on a timeline. It's about being mindful of it, mindful of what you're putting into your body, mindful of how much you're putting into your body. And if you are someone who is feeling consumed or constantly thinking about that restriction and control you have to have around your food, there may be some room there to investigate whether that obsession, we will call it, with food is actually about the food or something deeper, like the relationship you hold with yourself. So it's really overrated to assume that you can't eat after a certain time. What's important is to understand that you need to fuel your body appropriately. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Overrated and Underrated Nutrition Edition. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.